Today, I'm going to be going through a few configurations that can hopefully make your life easier post-planning. The current scenario that I'm highlighting is everything's been approved up to that final manager at the very top level of the company user. There are some configurations that I was mentioning that you can take advantage of. So with everybody being at this company level, I currently have my planner. I'm going to use the download feature set to everything is being editable. So this configuration allows you to make any of those one-off changes that need to be made before the final approval by either your CEO, by your comp committee, by your overall team. And I neglected to choose everyone, so that's also very important. As this is re-downloading. And the idea is here is to make it easier for you to make changes on the fly, even during your meeting, which is why I did this downloading view. So if you're sitting in there with your board, with your comp committee, with your executives, the idea that you can quickly show them a summary, and you can have as many of these executive summaries as you want. And these won't be visible to managers. It's just going to be there at the company level. In this example for the executive summary, I have my distribution based on the rating. So I can see how much has been budgeted for the group of employees currently in that category, how much is remaining. And you can see as I scroll over, there is the other components, market adjustments, promotions. And this would be configured by your services team to match your processes. So whatever those components are, whatever that bonus plan, whatever's important for you to kind of be able to split out. Also, you can do that by department. If you know there's a special initiative or the executives are have a special initiative coming up for a certain department, say finance and accounting is bringing on new software that's supposed to really help, you can kind of make sure that they're, maybe receiving an extra bump. And as you're reviewing this, even by supervisor, I can go over here, I can filter based on that department, and then quickly just isolate that group of employees and make any changes in real time. So not only, again, as is the recommendations and then being able to give out these increases in real time as I make these changes, I can see the budget, overall budget and spend, but back over here on my summary, I would also see the impacts of those changes being made in real time. And I kind of touched on this earlier, the ability to also go in and change someone's department, their title. Normally these fields would not be editable by the manager. And you can actually even have this configured while your cycle is live. If you ever have trouble locating or need to ask services where certain data points are, even though the planning is started back down at the very lowest level supervisor, wherever it's at in the process, you can set up a configuration so that you can go in and proxy that company, and the fields that you need to be editable can be editable for you. And obviously, if a manager's mid-planning, they click save, there's going to be no disruption there. The value that you changed it to may not be on their current screen, but the value when they save it also wouldn't overwrite what that change that you just made. So when I go back over here, I also want to show you a few of the other reports and configurations that can be made in the tool to hopefully make your life easier. One of those being a budget and spend report. You most likely have this already configured in your tool. And this is just another way of actually splitting out the data. First, by supervisor or by manager. And secondly, as I have another tab exposed, is an executive budget versus spend. So I'm seeing for my executives, my business unit owners, my presidents, whoever those are, the total budget and spend. This would also be a good spot if you had some holdback funding that's an extra budgetary amount that you want your CEO to be able to decide on. You could have that also showing here. And additionally, the executive distribution, if you wanted to be able to see that per group. So have individual tabs, and again, this is done by the executive, but this could also be by the company or by the department. And I can see here in this example, the executive distribution for John Chapman based on your ratings. And then I'm seeing these grouped based on the different types of merit increases, market, promotion, or I want to go over here and see Mark White, executive numbers, or even loans. So it's just a really good way of kind of being able to present that data. Hopefully take some screenshots, put this in your PowerPoint, if you're not doing this in real time. And then once everything gets approved, you need to get that data back over to your HRIS or to your payroll. being able to create that payroll report really quickly. If this is something you don't currently have configured, I highly recommend, working with your services team, your customer success manager can initiate that with your team, and basically just make sure that you have that payroll file. You can review it. You can go in and take a look, make sure everything looks great, save it to your computer, and then upload it back over again to payroll. A few other reports that I find are helpful. Everything we've talked about so far has really been for leadership. Also being able to provide reports for your compensation team for yourself in some examples, or for your HR business partners. You could actually go in and select a location and send this to an HR business partner that was, responsible for a location or responsible for a certain function in the organization. And in this example, I'm just going to run everybody. And the idea is to provide you insights into your data that need to be looked into further. In this first example, it's going to show me all of the employees who did not receive an increase. And so that's going to be important to know for validation that they're not receiving a total compensation statement or a merit salary adjustment letter. These are the things you kind of want to test for and make sure that looks good. Wait for this to open. I ran the wrong one. Apologies. Let me go back to that. And we'll get back to that compensation letter in Excel output, because there's also a really good feature by providing that in Excel. But let me go back here to the compensation team. And these, again, can differ based on your needs, right? We want to tailor this so it's helpful for you in reducing your time needed after that post-planning cycle is over. These employees with no increase, or employees that are receiving lump sums. You can also provide additional charting, seeing a performance distribution by region, and seeing headcount and compensation totals by department or location, and then getting into a job analysis. So kind of grouping all of your grades or all your employees by grade, by location, seeing some outliers based on who's high in range or who's maybe below the minimum. If you do any of the year-over-year analysis, a lot of times this is finance, but sometimes we see this get brought over into the HR team as well. Just looking at headcount, looking at the different budgets by department, year over year, looking for any type of discrepancies or things that you would not expect. And as well as doing a pay compression analysis. So looking by job category, the headcounts for male versus female, the average salary ranges, and seeing other indicators that will kind of help you indicate if there's an issue. So back over here with the reports, and I went ahead and ran this earlier, is that compensation statement Excel output. This is really helpful if you have those times when you have some changes that you need to make on that statement that weren't captured. Say, for example, here is maybe this person got promoted actually to the CEO. That's not something that's going to be captured during the process, not typically. It's most of a post-planning operation. And so you can go in here, you can make adjustments, whatever statements might be helpful to add to an individual employee that's outside of the norm. And then using the inbuilt Microsoft Print to PDF, you can then create that PDF and it'll print out as expected. And here I can see you'll be promoted to the role of the CEO, or whatever footnote you may want to be able to add. So this is really helpful, again, just to keep you moving along. All right, so we talked about there's also the audit capabilities. So you do have those ability to obviously run those and see who made what changes. That's going to be important to kind of track, as well as data exports and other reports. So really kind of think through your process and look to find out what may be beneficial to pre-build within the tool, so that not only it's helpful this year, but following year on, following additional years, you can always look at that. And then lastly, we're going to close on just a demographic distribution. So this is sometimes needed to be able to show the distribution by the gender, by the ethnicity, or as age.